Diaz here with another Integral Astroblog, this time on Mars retrograde in Libra 2014. As we go along, you might want to keep in mind that up on the top of the page on the banner there, you can see the link to integralastrology.net, and when you go visit it, you can find lots of great articles, forecasts, link to other YouTube videos, classes, all sorts of things, so check that out at some point in time. Now, let's talk about Mars retrograde in Libra here in 2014, and there's three things we need to think about. One is Mars is in Libra, one is Mars is going to go retrograde, and the other is that Mars is going to be aspecting the Uranus-Pluto square, making a T-square with Jupiter in Cancer. And so we're going to talk about all of these things. We'll probably talk just a little bit about the last of them, because we need to talk about that big thing that's happening in April in its own astroblog. But let's talk about this Mars and Libra thing. Now, Mars is the planet that we associate with drive, assertion, sometimes aggression. I mean, Mars is the god of war, after all. And so the red planet is usually associated with those fiery passions, the sort of thing that, you would have a big red head over, like, it could be anger, it could be sex. It's these types of things. And Mars is a sign that, Mars is a planet that likes to begin things. It's associated with the sign of Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. Mars is, it's the head of the locomotive. It's the head. Mars is that which pushes its way into the world. And it's very individualistic. It's selfish. It could be good selfish, like I'm here for myself and I've got to do my thing, or it could be bad selfish. It could be, the hell with you. But Mars is somewhat selfish. And Libra is the sign of the other. It's associated with Venus. Interestingly, at the beginning of springtime, one of the first things to sort of pop up in the Martian way is are those little crocuses, little flowers that pop up through the snow and through the hard ground. And so these very Venusian flowers, these very soft flowers, are the first things that show up in a sort of Martian way. It's kind of interesting. The buds on trees also. Okay, but Mars is in Libra, and Mars in Libra signifies a kind of issue, because Mars wants to go ahead and do my thing, and Libra says, well, let's consider the other. So traditionally, astrologers say that Mars in Libra, that's such a great placement. And indeed, it's a little hard sometimes. Martial energy, when it expresses itself in Libra, is often sort of in a formal way. We've got to go through channels. It's more likely to dash off a terse memo than to, punch in the head, which is kind of a good thing. So it is a consideration of the others, at least up until a point. We'll follow the rules, says Mars in Libra. We'll follow the rules right up to the point when I've had enough. And when enough is enough, like Popeye, all of a sudden out comes the spinach. And then we got to get, more directly martial. Then we got to get really more directly forward-leaning and, hey, I'm going to do my thing. Now, Mars retrograde has something of the same type of energy, but it's a little bit different. Mars, being an outgoing type of energy, when it's retrograde, is directed inwards. Now, when any planet goes retrograde, we tend to do this. We tend to take the things that we associate with the planet, drive, in this case, drive, sexuality, and they become very intense. We really want to start a new job. We really want to start an exercise program. We really want to go forward with things. We really want a new sexual relationship. But the problem is, when Mars is retrograde, the energy is turned inward. That's part of why we want the martial things so much. But it's not a great time to externalize. And so what happens, again, we pull the energy inwards and it kind of builds, and every once in a while, it'll erupt. That happens, I think, more with Mars retrograde than with, say, Venus or Mercury or any of the other planets retrograde. This is kind of, you can only contain martial energy so much, and then it starts to push forward. So Mars retrograde in Libra. Mars is spending 6 months in Libra. It usually goes through Libra in about 2 months. And so Mars retrograde in Libra is getting us to really feel this energy. Now, if you're in Aries and Mars is your ruling planet, if your sun is in Aries, or if you have Aries as the rising sign, you may see this as a time when you sort of are constrained. You kind of need to go through channels. You'd like to push forward, but if you're a Libra, you'll probably be revisiting the time that Saturn was in Libra. That was kind of a rough time. If you're Libra ascendant, that time was probably a little bit rough for you. And what you'll be doing now is kind of revisiting that. Mars' extended stay in the sign is kind of saying to you, hey, remember when? And did we resolve those issues? And did we really resolve those issues? Everybody else, well, we'd like to go forward and we're pulling back. It's that restraint. It's that kind of, I want to go forward, but I can't. And then, of course, you shoot forward. You've got to break through the barrier. Now, the thing is that Mars in Libra is making a grand cross with Jupiter in Cancer, Pluto in Capricorn, and Uranus in Aries. Now, Uranus in Aries and Mars in Libra, these guys are having a discussion because Uranus in Aries is trying to push us forward, trying to say, hey, let's do our own thing. I gotta be me. I gotta do my thing. Mars in Libra is kind of helping to channel that energy, although it's also thwarting it. What we're doing is we're looking at the rules and saying, okay, which of these rules do I really want to live by and which do I not want to live by? Pluto in Capricorn and Jupiter in Cancer are kind of giving us a little bit different side of the story. They're more about the constraints that we have, just in a general sort of way. It's what are the constraints that institutions and society are giving us, and then what do we have to deal with in terms of our own personal security? No matter what we want to do, no matter what our project is, we're going to have to eat. And so they're sort of presenting the other side of the story. This is how it's playing out for us personally. What it does is build up tension. And it builds up tension throughout the retrograde period, which is going to be from March 1st out through May 19th. And I should know that, I know. And these roughly 10 weeks are going to be rather intense, particularly in mid-April, although I really don't think that we ought to look at any of the time that Mars is retrograde and say, it's probably going to be pretty intense throughout, but especially in mid-April. That's its own little astroblog. That's a big month for everybody. But we're going to be feeling the tension building, and there's going to have to be release points during the retrograde. We're not going to wait for the retrograde to be over. We're not going to wait for Mars to go ahead and get out of Libra. We are going to be experiencing eruptions during the retrograde period. So what can you do? We've got the situation where we'd like to go forward and be individuals. We feel the need for that. We feel the pressure to do that, and yet we feel constraints. Some of them are social, some of them are practical, some of them are institutional. We feel all these constraints on us. Well, it'd be really good if we don't fly completely off the handle. That would be a good thing to avoid. Plenty of people are going postal, and you don't want to get yourself into that category. Don't let me be reading about you on the news or anything. On the other hand, if you need to express yourself, you better express yourself. Don't let it build up too much. That internal energy of Mars pushing inwards during the retrograde can be very, very difficult to deal with if it's not expressed at all. So you may have to sit somebody down for a talk. You may have to quit your job. You may have to do something that is rather extreme. If it's a relationship issue, you may need to push on that as well. The other thing is the rules themselves may need to change. You can get yourself out of a situation that you can't stand anymore. That's one possibility. But the other thing is that the situation itself can change. The rules that we live by, the way that we have always done things, that can change. And really, at a deep level, that's what we're doing. At a deep level, we are challenging those rules. The suffering that you feel when you feel yourself limited and you want to go forward and you want to do things, but you just can't. That's really about the need to find some way to change those limitations, not to change your goals and your aspirations. That could be part of it if they're unreasonable, but it's really not about that. It's about changing the limitations that are on us. It's a little bit tough. We have a lot of energy telling us to go forward, but Mars retrograde in Libra is definitely putting on the brakes. And sooner or later, we're going to have to find a way to get in gear and get moving, even during the retrograde. Could be a little bit tough. It could get a little bit rough. And remember, you're experiencing it however you're experiencing it, but the rest of us are experiencing it too. So we're all in the same boat. And other people are liable to be a little bit edgy. Give them some space. That's a really, really good strategy. If anything else fails, give people some space.